Alex, and this is our son, William Christopher Luithly. From all I could tell, our pregnancy with William was pretty straightforward. We went to all the appointments together, and everything seemed so normal. The only thing that seemed weird at all was having to go to an extra appointment because William wasn't cooperating with the ultrasound technician. It seemed natural that he got his camera shyness from me. My favorite part of the pregnancy was at night reading Winnie the Pooh to him, hoping to feel and move to the sound of my voice.
In my journal, the morning before William was born, I wrote, "I'm just hoping for a smooth birthing process and for both of us to be healthy." My wish for a beautiful birth was granted. I was focused, Alex was perfectly supportive, and my mom was in the room all the way from Cheyenne, Wyoming.
Steph did so well. It was another sign to me that being a mother came so naturally to her, because it seemed like giving birth was something she was somehow 100% prepared for. He was born on March 25th, 2023 at 7:20 p.m., 11 hours and 40 minutes after we checked in at Maple Grove Hospital. Hearing Steph yell,
"Oh my God, he's huge."
as they laid him on her chest was the happiest and proudest I had ever felt. I was a dad.
And I wasn't wrong. William was 9 pounds, 6 ounces, and 21.5 inches long. After his initial tests, we were finally able to have our first night together as a family. The first and last night we'd ever have with just us three. I had some feelings that things weren't quite right, but we just chalked it up to us being new parents and not knowing exactly what a newborn does.
At his 24-hour checkup, her feelings were confirmed. William's oxygen level downstream of his heart was dangerously low, and he needed to be admitted to the NICU. About 13 hours later, my parents, Steph and I, were standing in that NICU room listening to a doctor explain what critical aortic stenosis was. The doctor drew William's anatomical heart with a dry erase marker on the medical plan board, while other nurses hovered around William's warmer bassinet to prep him for transfer to U of M Health Fairview Masonic Children's Hospital in Minneapolis.
I'll never forget the sound of Alex's sobs as we stood there taking all of that information in, and the feeling in my chest like I was literally gonna fall apart. William was transferred and lived at Masonic Children's for the rest of his 97-day-long life. He endured and survived several catheter lab procedures, 4 open heart surgeries, and a cardiac arrest.
Stephanie is holding William's beads of courage. Each of these beads represents an experience William had. Some notable examples are the 80 green beads he earned for being on dialysis, the 96 purple beads he received for getting IV infusions, and the 152 light green beads that represent the tests and scans he endured. There are 931 beads on this string. I could go on for hours about William's medical history, but he was so much more than a complicated case of CHD. In 3 months, he showed us how much strength can be held in such a small form. It seemed like every day there was something new, and when hope was starting to fade on whether we'd get to see his beautiful blue eyes, or have him squeeze our finger one last time, or watch his mischievous toes play with his medical tubes, he'd kick out against the odds to give us at least a few more precious days with him.
William was strong, but his body was really tired after over 3 months of fighting. He took his last breath on June 28th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. He was lying between us just as he was that first night, and the 3 of us were surrounded by medical staff who fought with him and loved him almost his entire life. We stayed with him for about an hour and a half, holding him, kissing him, memorizing his peaceful face, clear of any medical equipment for the first time since he was 24 hours old. After a long while of loving on him, it was time for us to gather our things and go home without our son.
Life after William was harder than we could have ever imagined. Not only did we lose our sweet little boy, but we lost all the hopes and dreams of what we thought our future looked like. Instead of hitting milestones and seeing our baby grow, we were planning a funeral. His funeral was beautiful though, standing room only, with unending words of pure love from so many people, which is what we ever wanted for him, to feel and be loved.
The months that followed his funeral were maybe a tiny bit less blurry than the first couple of weeks, but just as devastating. William's nursery was filled with piles of things that he would never see. A crib and rocking chair he'd never be in, car seats, and a diaper bag that had to be unpacked. We were lost. Numb, and somehow still feeling the nauseating pain. So when we got the gift certificate for a Faith Lodge retreat in the mail from our bosses and close friends, Katie and Gavin, it stopped us in our tracks. We were so lucky to have so many people like them to nudge us along this awful road. In April, on our way to Wisconsin, I found nerves surrounding every thought, and they were prevalent as we drove up through the trees to the front of Faith Lodge. Walking in through the front door, that feeling started to thin. There was a friendly face who welcomed us, walked us to our room, and then through the entire space with compassion and love.
Once we got settled, we went for a walk around the property that perfectly memorializes so many children. After that walk, we sent William's picture book and beads of courage on the memorial table next to the other 6 children who were being honored that weekend. That's when our guests for tonight, Katie and Aaron, found us. They recognized the beads, and then we sat and talked about how our sons, Eddie and William, were similar in so many ways. They both had congenital heart defects, they both were treated at Masonic, and they were both adorable and catalyzed love. That was the first of many connections we made at our retreat. Faith Lodge provides the opportunity to open up and be vulnerable with a group of people that, although don't know exactly what you're going through, can relate in a way that very few people can.
Faith Lodge also facilitates a space for peace and encourages creativity to express grief. The art projects were a wonderful way to spend time with each other and honor our William. We talked about how to represent him on the birdhouse we painted and took home, and how to etch William's journey on the wood ornament. The art room is also a precious space where we were able to connect with the other parents. We all contributed to a birdhouse for the Faith Lodge property with each of our babies' names on it. Cameron, Magnolia, Adeline, Eddie, Lucas, and William. The connection went beyond the art room too.
I remember one night sitting around the bonfire, talking to the fellow guests and saying, "It's almost been a year since William's been here, but this is the most normal thing I felt." Being able to open up and not have to worry about whether it's appropriate to be talking about it, and just being able to share our stories and grieve with people that were 12 hours earlier complete strangers, is an opportunity that's hard to even put into words. Simply, it was normal.
There was also a moment for me that normalized our grief. It was in a group therapy session where my heart started racing as I was saying something I felt. The quick heart rate came from the fear that the others would think I was crazy. But I looked up after I said it, and almost every head in the room was nodding in understanding. It was freeing, really, to feel so understood and so seen as a parent in a dead kid's club.
Every family that attends a retreat paints a rock that represent and honor their child. On our second to last day, we walked around the property's paths and found a place on Williamsville for our son's rock. Walking along the trails and seeing so many children being honored brought us comfort knowing that we're not alone in this club.
And on our last morning, before anyone else was awake, we took Katie and Aaron's advice to go out onto the deck and watch the sunrise. They said that since Eddie had died, they loved the sunrise and sunset because it made them feel closer to him somehow. We found that William felt closer that morning. Really, he felt closer to us at Faith Lodge that entire weekend. So, we stood there next to each other, reflecting on what a graceful and impactful weekend we had with all of the other parents, hoping that they all felt their children a little closer then, too.
Faith Lodge changed the trajectory of our grieving. We know it'll never be over until we see our William again.
But we found peace and hope and the comfort of collective grief during our retreat. We're so grateful to every person who generally contributes to Faith Lodge.
It truly helps give parents like us a place to heal and connect. Thank you for being here, and thank you for helping the families in the future experience the magic that is Faith Lodge.